Howdy, my name is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGameLLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to continue the top 100 games of all time list, going from number 40 to 31. Let's begin. Number 40 is my highest rated in the West Kingdom trilogy, Architects of the West Kingdom. In this game, you play as a controller of this huge group of workers, about 25, 30 workers, and you're going to send them out in order to work on the cathedral or build these really unique building cards in your hand. And when you do this, you'll be putting them into spaces and getting a resource, drawing some cards. But one of my favorite things about this is the more workers you have at a spot, the better that actually becomes. You might get 3 or 4 resources when you go somewhere. You might get a better selection of cards, more cards at a time. It's really cool the way the actions ramp up. And my favorite part of this game is actually the arrest mechanism. So when you send one of your characters to a specific location, that location lets you round up a group of people. If they're your own people, you can use them again. You can reallocate them. Really strong, effective way to get your people back. But if you round up an opponent's pieces, you can actually send them to jail and get money for each person you deliver. So I really like that mechanic where the players are able to control the flow of the game and they're able to police each other to make sure no one's getting too strong. So I really like that natural way it's integrated into the game and just the uniqueness of this game as a whole. So that's Architects of the West Kingdom, my number 40. My number 39 is a solo game. This is Warp's Edge. This is one of my big surprises from last year that I haven't tried till this year, but this is a bag building game where you play a ship and your job is to take down a enemy mothership. You're going to be doing that by destroying wave after wave of these spaceships and making yourself better by adding new chips to your bag. And my favorite part of this game is the way you're upgrading yourself. Now, every round you play, whenever you defeat creatures, you get to add new tokens to your bag. And you get tokens based on how you defeat the creatures, whether by lasers or by, dodging them in a dogfight. And you can kind of pick and choose how you're going to upgrade people based on the upgrades you want. So I really enjoy that part of this game. And I like that you're able to kind of sift through your bag and get rid of bad tokens by taking damage. And it's a really interesting mechanic here because the gameplay itself, the length of the game, is dependent on the amount of chips in your bag. The more chips you have, the longer you can go, but if you have a bunch of bad chips, the quality of your turns is going to be pretty poor, so you're probably going to be more susceptible to damage from your enemies. So I really like that part of this game. You're having to choose between efficiency and time, and I think that is super awesome. So this is my favorite by this designer, Scott Almes, and I think he knocked that out of the park with this bag building adventure game. So, bag building space battle game. I think he did a great job. So that's my number 39, Warp's Edge. My number 38 is a dream crawling game. This is Etherfields. Etherfields is a big story game where you're going to be jumping from dream to dream and living through these crazy experiences with a tried and true deck building system. So I really love the way that the game uses some known mechanics to tell a great story. And my favorite part of this game, without getting into any spoilers, is the creativity that is used in the different scenarios. So every time you enter a dream, you'll grab a stack of cards that relate to that dream, and then you'll lay them out on the board how you're instructed, and usually you'll have these large square tiles, and they'll be where you're going to be putting your piece and moving around on. And some of these dreams take those cards and use them in really fascinating ways, and it's really something you just got to explore and experience, but it does a great job in telling its story. And the upgrade system in this game is a lot of fun. You feel very powerful as you play, but you also feel like you're just barely hanging on in certain points. So I really like the whole system here in Etherfields and the story it tells and the gameplay that comes from it. This is a great game. This is Etherfields, my number 38. My number 37 is a game that I've really grown attached to, whether it be multiplayer or you can even play this one solo, and the solo is really great. This is Tekhenu, Obelisk of the Sun. This is an Egyptian-themed dice drafting game where you are going to be making offerings to each of the gods to help you score points in a variety of ways, whether it be building some temples or getting these endgame scoring cards and appeasing those conditions. I think this game is fantastic in the small amount of time that you have to do things and the importance of the actions you're taking and how you really have to prioritize certain things during the game with that limited time. My favorite part of this game are the technology cards and the cards in general that you're going to be using. So at the start of the game, you get an endgame score card that's going to kind of set you on a path for the game, and you want to do that thing really well. But you can also buy these technology cards as you play that give you special powers that no one else has. And I love that. It gives you some difference between the other players, and it allows you to do really cool things that no one else can. and they could be one-time use effects or continuous effects, or they could be more endgame scoring cards, the more advanced your technology choices become. So I really like Tekhenu. I love the variability of the cards, and I think this game is so solid. It's a winner. Tekhenu, my number 37. My number 36 is Caverna, the Cave Farmers. Now, Caverna, you play a group of fantasy creatures, dwarfs, or if you have the expansion, you can play like trolls or rock people, all sorts of cool people. And you get to work on your cave, or you can work on your farm, or you can do a bit of both. So there's a lot of freedom in this game. And my favorite part of this game is actually the huge amount of variety. The variety, the choices, you're going to be picking from a laundry list of buildings, and each building does something really fascinating, something cool. Generally, they're very small effects, but some you can turn a whole strategy on. There's even one of my favorite buildings called like a dog school. Every time you get a puppy in the game, it comes with a wood. And so now all of a sudden, you're trying to get as many puppies as possible to maximize your wood production rate. And I think that's just really fun that they can take a little concept like this and you can really plan a whole game around it. So I think that Caverna is a lot of fun with the unique buildings, and the expansion, the Forgotten Folk expansion, adds a plethora of characters that you can be, these new fantasy races, and each one comes with even more buildings that are unique to them. So it's a lot of fun exploring the different paths you can take. And this plays from 1 to 7, and it does it really well. It increases the amount of actions on the board, but it still keeps the quick gameplay, because on your turn, you simply just put a worker out and do the action. And there's a lot to love about this game. Another, I'm saying my favorite thing, but another one of my favorite things is the exploration mechanic in this game. You can build weapons for your fantasy creatures and send them out to go and retrieve goods from places beyond. And so when you go, you can come back with like cows or sheep or whatever you find out there, maybe even a new place for new dwarfs to live. And then you upgrade your weapons so the next time you go out, you're even better. So you can kind of prioritize sending out these adventurers, or you can just focus on your farm at home. I think it's really well done. I really love Caverna. That's my number 36. My number 35 is Root. So Root is a game where you are a woodland creature, a race of woodland creatures fighting for control of the forest. Now I think Root does some incredible things here. The first thing is it allows you to play asymmetrically in a huge way, because every character plays completely different than every other character, but it does it in a way where the rules are really simplified so that everyone can play by the same set of unified rules. And I think that's incredible, and it's much better than some of the other games that have attempted this. So this company has made a lot of games like this, particularly Vast, where the rules were a little convoluted and the races didn't really help with that. But in this game, the rule set is so simple. Moving is the same, attacking is the same, you play out of the same deck of cards, your victory condition is the same. However, the way you get to those things and the way you use those things are different. And I think it excels in that, because you can look at what a player is doing and you can think, okay, this is how I can try to stop them, or this is how I can leverage them for victory myself. And I think Root is incredible in that way. And my favorite part of this game are the factions themselves. And my particular favorites are the moles and the eyrie, so the birds. And there are these programming, or they're actions where they're factions where you're trying to maximize the amount of actions you get every turn. And it's very easy for your opponents to disrupt those actions, but if you are able to manipulate the situation to where you can maximize the actions you're getting, you're going to steamroll these opponents. And I think it's really fun to kind of watch things go into place and how it's up to you to determine how to do that. And the game is completely controlled by the players. The luck comes from the dice occasionally. Usually when you're attacking, you have a bit of better luck though. You always get the stronger number. But I really like that the decisions that the players make really affect the whole, woodland landscape. So Root is fantastic. This is my number 35. Fantastic game. My number 34 is Anachrony. Anachrony is a game where a meteor has hit the planet, and it has given us the ability to see the future and interact with the past. So this meteor has warned us that, hey, another bigger meteor is coming, it's going to wipe out the planet. You need to use the resources you have to prepare to evacuate. So this whole game is a preparation for evacuation, but you have some time travel thrown in. You can borrow resources from your future self, but in order to access this climate that you're at, it's really toxic and poisonous, so you have to load up your workers into these exosuits, and when you're in exosuits, you can enter the outside area. So it actually comes with miniatures that you can put your little guys in and send out, and I think that's just so fun. It's It's a lot of fun. You have a lot of customization. My favorite part of this game are the buildings that you can build. You're going to have a main board area that you're putting exosuits out on. So your own exosuits, it's a main area that everybody shares, but you're going to be using that to build your own private little buildings inside of your base. And these little buildings give you really cool powers. So the cost of the buildings are always the same. It's based on the number of buildings you built before. So it's really cool how the costs scale, but the effects can be completely different. So there's a lot of pressure to get a building that might be really powerful for you, or to get ones that are worth a lot of points, or things that are going to help you with preparing to evacuate, which is also different. The asymmetrical conditions for victory, for gameplay, for special abilities in this are crazy, and the expansions that this game has are also a lot of fun. My favorite expansion is the exploration expansion. It adds a little bit of randomness to it, but you can prepare for that randomness by using some of the actions in different ways that are in the base game. So I really like going out into the planet and seeing what you can find and using those new resources to the best of your ability. So Anachrony is a lot of fun. We love it so much. We painted our copy. Can't get enough of this game, Anachrony. This is number 34. Number 33 is a huge game, but I've got the little box with me, and this is Gloomhaven. So Gloomhaven and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, when I built this list initially, they were actually 33 and 34, so I combined them into one. Both games are fantastic. I rank the original Gloomhaven a little bit higher than the Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion because of the variety and the amount of characters that you can choose from, and I really like the overarching story and the way scenarios are connected in the original Gloomhaven. But Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion has a map book, which is amazing. Wow. If they follow through with that promise that they would look into the map book for the main game, buy it in a heartbeat. And so I really like Gloomhaven. What is Gloomhaven? It's a dungeon crawling game. It's a card-based game where you're going to be using 2 action cards to move your character on the map and interact with the board. So generally you're going to be slaying monsters and trying to survive and pick up loot yourself. Now this is very straightforward, and that's probably the beauty of this game, is the gameplay is so straightforward. You're going to pick those 2 cards, do something on the board, and the enemies will flip their cards, and you'll see the order based on whose initiative is higher. And that's really the gameplay loop. You're going to be doing that over and over and over again. But the way Gloomhaven does it is each race has its own unique cards. And as you level up, you can kind of pick and choose. You have choices every time you level up. You can go back and pick up cards from previous levels. You can really customize your experience the way you see fit. And I love the different factions in this game. There's a lot of spoilers in both games just because there's a lot of hidden information. But I think that both of these games are fantastic. If you're not sure about the game, I would recommend Jaws of the Lion in a heartbeat. But if you know this is something you're going to like, I would get the base game. There's a reason it's number 1 on Board Game Geek. It's fantastic. My wife and I have played through this completely, and we had a blast. And so working through Jaws of the Lion right now and having a lot of fun revisiting this world and revisiting the different characters that inhabit it. So I really like Gloomhaven, and Frosthaven will be out soon, and that's another exciting project from Isaac Childress. So very excited. That's my number 33, Gloomhaven and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Number 32 is Tewa Tewa, City of Gods. So Tewa Tewa is a game where you are using little dice as your workers, and you're moving them around a board. So it's a rondel. You'll move your characters, and every time you use a character, generally, they're going to age a little bit. And it has this really cool mechanic where once they reach a 6, your characters will ascend. They'll die, and they'll be reborn, and you get to activate a cool effect. Now, I really love the whole action selection mechanism of this game. Every time you go to a place, it has a grid, and each of these grids relates to the amount of dice you have there and how strong the dice are. So if all your dice are 1s, your effects are going to be pretty dang weak. But once you start getting those dice higher numbers, they produce better actions. And I think that's really fascinating because the higher the numbers, the better your actions. But if you get it to a 6, they'll die and they'll reset to a 1, and you'll get a bonus, but you're going to lose that high number to activate better actions. And at the end of the round, if you have a lot of high numbers, you have to pay more resources to keep them fed. So it's a really interesting balancing system of, do I just have a whole bunch of strong actions all the time, or do I focus and make sure that I can get my people as quickly aged up as possible and ascend? That way you can, minimize your resource costs and get the better payment at the end, and get those bonus actions for them ascending. So there's a lot to think about when you use your characters, and you have to weigh your options as you play. So I really like the ascension mechanic in this game. That's my number 32. This is Tewa Tewa. Fantastic game. And last on this list today is my number 31, another dice drafting game. This is Role Player. Role Player takes the idea of D&D and character creation and puts it into a game. Now, in the original game, you're going to be picking dice and you're going to be using them to fill out attributes on your character, and you're trying to reach certain scores while interacting with a market. The expansions, however, really elevate this game in my opinion. The first expansion adds a monster that you'll fight at the end. So this character you're building will actually go and fight something. And you can fight these little minions along the way to learn more about this new threat that you're fighting. And the second expansion, the Fiends and Familiars, adds fiends. So it adds fiends and well, go figure, fiends and familiars. But the familiars are an additional set of numbers that you can fill in at the top of your board, which gives you some options on taking lower numbers, which is really nice, because before, sometimes if you got a low number, it just really stunk. But that is awesome for those options. And it also adds these fiend cards, which kind of punishes users for taking higher dice numbers. So I really like the balancing act that those two ideas add. It also increases the amount of dice that you'll be drafting during the beginning of the game. So it does speed up the game a little bit too, which I think is a great idea. It adds a little bit more dice for the familiar to fill in, but it compensates for that by having you draft more dice at the beginning, which is interesting because now you have more than just one decision to make. You have to pick a pair of dice, which has its own problems or issues, I should say. Well, not issues, challenges is more like it. But I think the dice drafting in this game is really smooth, and my favorite part of this game is the immense puzzle that it is altogether. So at the start of the game, you have these attributes you're trying to fill. You have to get them specific numbers. So every dice you take matters because some are exact numbers, some are a range of numbers. You really got to pay attention and pick and choose what's going to be best for you. You have these special abilities that happen when you take specific dice onto your board. So you want to plan for when you're going to use those. And you also have these market cards that are going to be coming out throughout the game that are going to help you manipulate your situation no matter what it is. And I think figuring out how that puzzle works based on the random values of the dice and the random cards that come out, knowing you have a plan and knowing you have a strategy and having to be tactical with the decisions that are coming out, I think that is super solid, and I think they did a great job with Role Player, and the package as a whole is perfect. I love this whole universe, everything they've done. They're making new stuff all the time. Cartographers, Lockup, other great games, and the new Role Player Adventures is coming out soon, and you can actually take your character that you finish in Role Player and use them in that game. And I think that's just a really fun concept to kind of bridge the gap between the two games. So that's my number 31, Role Player. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions about the games that I talked about today, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks so much. Side Game Strong.